Before any civilization knew another one existed, dozens of them, separated by oceans, deserts, and thousands of miles of jungle, built the same thing, the same shape, over and over, for thousands of years, as if someone had already given them the instructions. Today we ask the question that official science has never honestly answered. Why pyramids? Why everywhere? Why do they all point at the sky? And why did every single civilization that built them say the exact same thing? That gods came from above, taught us everything we know, and will one day return. This is not a history lesson. This is an open case file. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built approximately 2560 BC. 2.3 million stone blocks. Some individual blocks weigh 80 tons. Total mass, roughly 6 million tons. And to this day, modern engineers cannot fully explain how it was assembled using Bronze Age technology. But the mystery isn't just the scale. It's the precision. The pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. That is more precise than the Paris Observatory, a building constructed in the 17th century specifically for astronomical measurements. The base, 230 meters on each side, varies by less than 2 centimeters across its entire length. This is not the work of people guessing with ropes and torchlight. This is precision engineering. Now the mathematics. The base perimeter divided by twice the height gives you the number pi to 4 decimal places. The ratio of the height to the base perimeter matches the ratio of Earth's polar radius to its circumference. The geographic coordinates of the pyramid, 29.9792 degrees north latitude, numerically correspond to the speed of light in meters per second. The pyramid stands on the meridian that divides Earth's landmass into 2 equal halves. Mainstream science calls this coincidence. But at what point does coincidence stop being coincidence and start being a message? Now here is what the tour guides in Cairo don't tell you. The ancient Egyptians themselves did not call these structures tombs, not in their oldest texts. The pyramid texts, over 4,000 years old, the most ancient religious writing on Earth, describe the pyramid as an ascension machine, a launch pad, a device through which the pharaoh would physically rise to join the gods among the stars. Not spiritually, not symbolically, physically. The texts say, literally, "This king flies away from you. He is not of the earth. He is of the sky." Who is he flying to meet? The gods the Egyptians called the Neteru, divine intelligences who arrived before human civilization began, laid its foundations, and eventually departed. And the entire Egyptian culture was built around the memory of that departure and the anticipation of a return from the stars. And one more thing that demands its own discussion: the king's chamber inside the Great Pyramid. Empty. No mummy, no inscriptions, no decorations. Nothing was ever found there. What researchers did find is something different. The chamber resonates. Its granite walls produce a standing wave frequency of approximately 438 Hz when sound is introduced. Almost exactly the concert, a note in music. Scientists from ITMO University in St. Petersburg published findings showing the pyramid actively concentrates electromagnetic energy inside its chambers and beneath its base. This is not a tomb. This is a device. But what was it doing? Now travel 11,000 kilometers west. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan stands 65 meters tall. The perimeter of its base is nearly identical to the perimeter of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This has been independently verified multiple times. No satisfying explanation exists for why 2 civilizations with 0 documented contact built structures of the exact same scale. But here is the strangest part. Nobody knows who built Teotihuacan at all. The Aztecs arrived centuries later and found the city already ancient, already silent, already abandoned. They gave it a name in their own language, Teotihuacan, which means the place where men become gods. They had no idea who created it. They assumed it must have been giants. Directly beneath the Pyramid of the Sun, archaeologists discovered in 1971 a natural lava tube tunnel extending 100 meters straight under the pyramid's center, ending in a chamber shaped like a four-leaf clover. The ancient builders knew it was there. The pyramid was placed above it deliberately. In Mesoamerican cosmology, caves were not geological formations. They were portals, passageways between worlds. So the builders created a vertical axis, sky above, underworld below, humanity standing in the middle.
And 150 kilometers away at Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of Kukulkan performs something even more astonishing. On the spring equinox at sunset, shadows cast by the pyramid's 9 terraces align perfectly to form the image of a feathered serpent descending the northern staircase. It lasts exactly 34 minutes. Then it disappears for another year. Achieving this required centuries of astronomical observation, mathematical modeling, and architectural execution, all aimed at a single 34-minute event. The serpent was Kukulkan, a feathered god who descended from the sky, taught civilization to humanity, and promised to return. A sky god who taught, who left, who will return. We have heard this story before, and we will hear it again. Most people don't know this. Sudan has more pyramids than Egypt, over 200 of them. The ancient Nubian civilization of Kush built them over nearly 1,000 years, narrower and steeper than Egyptian pyramids, like dark stone needles rising from the desert floor. The Nubian pyramids were built between roughly 700 BC and 350 AD, long after Egypt had stopped building them, as if a signal was passed, a baton in a relay race that crossed centuries and hundreds of miles. The Meroitic script has never been fully deciphered. We can read the letters phonetically. We cannot understand the language behind them. Everything these people knew, believed, and recorded about the sky and the gods remains locked in untranslated stone. What we do know, the pyramids of Meroe were oriented toward specific star clusters, each pyramid connected to a particular stellar alignment. And the supreme deity of the Meroitic kingdom was Apedemoc, depicted as a man with the head of a lion, described in carvings as a being who descended from another world, brought knowledge and order to humanity, and will one day return to judge the living. Lion-headed, descended from another world, brought knowledge, will return. The Egyptians described the Neteru who did the same thing. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki who did the same thing. The Maya described Kukulkan who did the same thing. The Andean peoples described Viracocha who did the same thing. At some point, the question is no longer whether these beings existed. The question is, why did every single civilization on Earth, independently of each other, remember them? Now go back even further, before the Egyptian pyramids, before written history as we understand it. Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Around 3500 BC, the Sumerians appeared as a fully formed civilization. No gradual development, no archaeological record of a slow tribal progression into complexity. Just suddenly, cities, writing, mathematics, astronomy, law, medicine, agriculture, and ziggurats. Massive stepped pyramid structures that towered over the flat Mesopotamian plain. The great ziggurat of Ur stood 7 stories tall. It was not a monument and not a tomb. It was a house for a god. The Sumerians were explicit about this. These beings lived among them physically, and the ziggurats were their residences and landing points. The Sumerian clay tablets, the oldest written records on Earth, describe these beings in direct, administrative language. The Anunnaki, those who from the heavens came. Not gods of thunder and rain, physical beings. Beings who required food, water, and labor. Beings who taught humanity everything it knew
and who built the first cities alongside their human pupils. These tablets exist, the translations exist, and the question exists: what if the ancient Sumerians were simply telling the truth about what happened? Egypt, Mexico, Sudan, Iraq. The list does not end there. In Cambodia, Angkor Wat covers 162 hectares, the largest religious monument ever built. Its towers are precisely aligned with sunrise on the spring equinox. Its layout from the air mirrors the constellation Draco, not as it looked in 1100 AD when the temple was constructed, but as it appeared in 10,500 BC. They encoded an astronomical memory 11,000 years older than the building itself. What were they pointing back to? In Bosnia, researchers in 2005 identified artificial pyramid structures near the town of Visoko. The largest appears to stand over 213 meters, taller than the Great Pyramid. Carbon dating suggests human presence 25,000 years ago. Underground tunnels emit measurable ultrasonic frequencies. The academic world largely refused to investigate. In China, satellite imagery revealed over 100 pyramidal burial mounds in Shaanxi province, some larger than Giza, overgrown with centuries of vegetation. The Chinese government has kept most of them sealed and off-limits to foreign researchers. The oldest are attributed to emperors who claimed descent from beings that arrived from the sky.
In Indonesia, Mount Padang on the island of Java was assumed for decades to be a natural hill with ancient ruins on top. In 2023, a research team using ground-penetrating radar and seismic tomography published findings showing the structure extends at least 15 meters underground and was built in multiple phases, the deepest layers potentially dating back 25,000 years. Before the last ice age ended, before civilization is supposed to have existed. In Peru, the Caro civilization built pyramid complexes in the Sup Valley around 2600 BC, simultaneously with Egypt's Old Kingdom. With no documented contact between the two cultures, their pyramids were gathering places, sites of communication with what they called forces that came from above. Every continent, every era, the same shape, always pointing at the sky, always connected to gods who came from above, always built near water, over caves, on energetically significant ground. This is not coincidence. Coincidences do not repeat this consistently, across this much time and distance, with this much architectural precision. 3 explanations exist. One of them is probably true. Possibly all 3 are partially true. The first, engineering logic. A pyramid is the most structurally stable shape you can build tall. Every civilization discovered this independently. No mystery. This is the scientific consensus. But this explains the shape. It does not explain why every civilization encoded identical astronomical data into their pyramids. It does not explain the mathematical constants. It does not explain why they all aligned their structures to star configurations that were relevant 10,000 years before their own civilization was born. Engineering logic tells you to build stable. It does not tell you to align your building to Orion's belt and encode the speed of light into its coordinates. The second, a lost civilization. Before all the civilizations we know about, there existed a global maritime culture, technically sophisticated, astronomically advanced, destroyed by catastrophic flooding at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. Survivors scattered to every continent, carrying knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and sacred architecture. The pyramids are their fingerprint. Stone was chosen because stone survives. These structures are a library encoded in geometry, waiting for a civilization advanced enough to read it. This theory is supported by mounting geological evidence of massive flood events around 9600 BC, and by the anomalous dates appearing at Mount Padang and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a sophisticated stone monument built 12,000 years ago and then deliberately buried, as if someone knew what was coming and wanted to preserve it. The third, contact with a non-human intelligence.
This is what every ancient civilization stated openly, and what every modern institution refuses to examine seriously. The gods were real, not supernatural, physical. Beings from another star system, or another level of reality, made contact with early human populations. They taught us, they directed us, they asked or commanded us to build. And when they departed, they left instructions encoded in stone so we would remember, so we would keep the channel open, so that when they returned, we would recognize the signal. Every major tradition on Earth contains this story. The Anunnaki of Sumer, the Neteru of Egypt, Viracocha of the Andes, Kukulkan of the Maya, the Oannes of Babylon, described explicitly as a being that emerged from the sea or descended from the sky, taught humanity everything it needed to know, and departed with the promise of return. These are not parallel myths. These may be parallel memories. The same events, witnessed by isolated peoples across the ancient world, preserved in different languages, but describing the same encounter. What if the ancient testimony is simply true? What if we have been so committed to the story that we are the first intelligent civilization on this planet, that we have refused to read the evidence that contradicts it, carved in stone on every continent? We live in an age drunk on its own intelligence. We have artificial intelligence, particle accelerators, and gene sequencing, and we assume the distance between us and the ancient world is simply a story of progress. They knew less, we know more. But the pyramids say something different. They say, someone before you already understood things you have not yet rediscovered. They encoded mathematics you would not independently derive for thousands of years. They built structures you cannot replicate today with all your technology. They aligned stone to stars with a precision that embarrasses your most advanced observatories. And they told us, in every language that existed, exactly who taught them to do it. We translated their words. We built museums around their artifacts. And then we decided that the most important thing they said, the core of their testimony, the heart of their experience, was mythology. Too strange, too inconvenient, too threatening to the story we tell about ourselves. Maybe the stone will outlast our certainty. Every decade, new scanning reveals chambers no one knew existed. New geological data pushes the dates further back. New electromagnetic research confirms these structures interact with energy fields in ways we do not yet understand. We are the first generation with instruments precise enough to begin truly understanding what these structures are doing. Not what they did, what they are doing. Because they are still active, still resonating, still aligned to the same stars, still waiting. The pyramids are not relics of the past. They are questions addressed to the future, to us. Whatever the truth is, it is carved in stone, on every continent, beneath every sky, in the same shape. And it is pointing up. Subscribe, because we are only beginning to ask the right questions.